The ultimatum, the throne room of Emperor Vaxis, stretched across an area larger than most planetary capitals. Golden pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with the conquered worlds of the Zephyrian Empire. Each world was depicted in intricate detail, showing the moment of surrender. 847 painted scenes of victory decorated the vast space above. Emperor Vaxis himself stood 12 feet tall, his four arms crossed behind his muscular back. His scaled skin gleamed purple under the artificial lights, and his 6 eyes scanned the holographic display floating before him. The image showed a small blue world orbiting a yellow star in what the locals called the Milky Way galaxy. Earth, he spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. Such a simple name for such an interesting world. General Krax, his most trusted military commander, stepped forward. The general's own impressive 8-foot frame looked small next to the Emperor. "My lord, our scouts confirm that this species calls themselves humans. They have spread to only 4 worlds in their system. Their technology appears primitive by our standards." Vaxis nodded slowly. The Zephyrian Empire had encountered thousands of species across the galaxy. Most surrendered immediately when they learned of the Empire's power. Those who didn't were quickly crushed, and their worlds added to the painted ceiling above. "What makes them different?" Vaxis asked, genuinely curious. "They seem to be curious by nature," Krax replied, consulting his datapad. "Our cultural analysis suggests they explore not for conquest, but for knowledge. They send peaceful missions to other worlds. They have never attacked first in any conflict we've observed." "Peaceful explorers," Vaxis mused. "How refreshing. It has been decades since we encountered a truly peaceful species." He turned away from the hologram and walked toward the great window that showed the capital city of Zephyr Prime. Millions of beings from hundreds of conquered worlds lived below, all serving the Empire. "However," the Emperor continued, "they have something we need." Krax tilted his head. "My lord?" "Their world sits at a perfect strategic location. If we control Earth, we control access to 3 major hyperspace routes. More importantly, their star system contains resources we require for our next expansion phase." Vaxis turned back to face his general. "But I am feeling generous today." The Emperor moved to his communication console, a device capable of reaching across the galaxy in moments. "I will offer them what I offered the others. They can join our empire willingly and keep their lives, or they can resist and lose everything." "Shall I prepare the war fleet, my lord?" Krax asked. "Not yet." Vaxis smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Let us see how they respond to diplomacy first." The message was transmitted across space, reaching Earth in less than an hour through the Empire's advanced communication network. It was simple and direct, as all Zephyrian ultimatums were. On Luna, Earth's moon, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Terran Defense Command. She was a small woman by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall, with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much over her 40-year military career. The holographic message floated before her, translated by the automated systems. "To the beings of the world called Earth," she read aloud to her assembled staff. "I am Emperor Vaxis of the Zephyrian Empire, ruler of 847 star systems. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our empire. You have 72 hours to signal your complete surrender. Lay down all weapons, dismantle all military installations, and prepare to receive our occupation forces. If you comply, your species will be relocated to suitable worlds within our empire and allowed to live as productive citizens. If you resist, your world will be cleansed of all life and repopulated with more cooperative beings. This is the only communication you will receive. Your response is expected within the specified time." The command center fell silent. 20 officers and analysts stared at the message, processing what they had just heard. Colonel James Rodriguez, Chen's second-in-command, spoke first. "Admiral, our long-range sensors confirm a massive fleet gathering at the edge of their territory. If their claims are accurate, they have the firepower to destroy our entire civilization." Chen nodded thoughtfully. She had been preparing for this day longer than anyone knew. "How massive?" Best estimates suggest over 500 ships, each larger than our biggest cruisers, Rodriguez replied. Ma'am, if they're telling the truth about conquering 800 worlds, we might be looking at the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Dr. Elizabeth Santos, the chief science advisor, pulled up additional data. Admiral, I've been analyzing their technology based on the transmission. Their faster-than-light communication alone suggests they're centuries ahead of us in several fields. But not all fields, Chen said quietly. The room looked at her with confusion. Chen had been unusually calm since receiving the ultimatum, almost as if she had been expecting it. Ma'am? Rodriguez asked. Chen walked to the main display and pulled up a file marked with the highest security classification. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to read you into Project Cerberus. What I'm about to show you is known to fewer than 50 people on Earth. The display changed, showing technical diagrams and construction reports dating back 50 years. The assembled staff gasped as they realized what they were looking at. For the past 5 decades, Chen explained, humanity has been preparing for exactly this scenario. We knew that eventually we would encounter a hostile alien civilization with superior numbers and technology. We knew we couldn't match them ship for ship or soldier for soldier. The diagram showed massive construction projects hidden throughout the solar system, automated factories built into asteroids, weapon platforms disguised as space debris, and technological developments that surpassed anything the public knew existed. So we chose a different strategy. Chen continued. We decided to become very, very good at hiding, and very, very good at surprises. Commander Lisa Park, the communications officer, raised her hand. Admiral, what about their ultimatum? They're expecting a response in 72 hours. Chen smiled for the first time since receiving the message. It was not a pleasant smile. Commander, we are going to give them exactly what they expect from a primitive, peaceful species. Which is? Complete silence. Back on Zephyr Prime, Emperor. Vaxis waited. The first day passed with no response from Earth. The second day brought more silence. By the third day, Vaxis was growing impatient. Still nothing, my lord, reported the communications officer. No transmissions, no diplomatic signals, not even military chatter. Their planet has gone completely quiet. General Krax nodded approvingly. Fear, my lord, they are paralyzed with terror, this is common among primitive species when they first encounter our empire. Or, suggested another advisor, they are preparing some desperate last stand. Vaxis considered both possibilities. It matters little. Fear or desperation, the result will be the same. He stood from his throne, decision made. General Krax mobilized the 5th Armada. 500 ships should be more than sufficient to handle whatever these humans might attempt. Yes, my lord. Shall we proceed with standard occupation protocols? Yes, but with one modification, Vaxis said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. I will personally lead this campaign. It has been too long since I witnessed a conquest firsthand. The Zephyrian war machine came alive with frightening efficiency. Within hours, 500 warships were loaded with supplies, weapons, and eager soldiers. The 5th Armada was the pride of the Zephyrian military, led by the massive flagship Eternal Dominion, which was large enough to serve as a mobile city. As the fleet prepared to depart, Vaxis addressed his commanders through the ship's communication system. My fellow Zephyrians, today we add another world to our great empire. The beings of Earth have chosen silence over surrender, fear over wisdom. We shall show them the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. The assembled commanders roared their approval. Many had fought in dozens of campaigns and all expected this to be another easy victory against a primitive species. However, Vaxis continued, his tone becoming more serious. Do not let their apparent weakness fool you into carelessness. The silent ones sometimes surprise us. Maintain full military protocols until their world is secured. General Krax privately thought the Emperor was being overly cautious, but he said nothing. In his experience, species that went silent were already broken. The humans would likely surrender the moment the fleet appeared in their sky. The Eternal Dominion led the Armada out of Zephyrian space, followed by battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. It was an impressive sight that had terrified hundreds of worlds into surrender without a fight. The journey to Earth would take 6 days at maximum warp speed. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched the departing fleet through long-range sensors. She stood in a command center that officially didn't exist, buried deep beneath the surface of Luna. Around her, dozens of officers monitored displays showing the positions of hidden weapons, stealth ships, and automated defense systems scattered throughout the solar system. "Admiral," reported Colonel Rodriguez, "enemy fleet is maintaining course for Earth. Estimated arrival in 6 days. "Excellent," Chen replied. "Signal all Cerberus stations. Begin final preparations." Across the solar system, ancient-looking asteroids began to hum with hidden energy. Derelict space stations that had appeared abandoned for decades started warming up long-dormant systems. Deep in the asteroid belt, massive factories that had been building in secret for 50 years completed their final products. Dr. Santos approached the Admiral with a concerned expression. "Sarah, are you sure about this? If we're wrong about our capabilities, we're gambling with the survival of our entire species." Chen looked at her old friend with steady eyes. "Elizabeth, 50 years ago my predecessor made a promise. If humanity was ever threatened with extinction by a superior force, we would not go quietly into the night. We would make them regret ever hearing the name Earth. And if we lose, then we'll lose fighting, and maybe, just maybe, we'll hurt them badly enough that the next species they threaten will have a better chance." The countdown had begun. In 6 days, the Zephyrian Empire would discover that humanity's silence had not been born of fear but of preparation. The galaxy was about to witness what happened when a peaceful species decided it had been peaceful long enough. The Awakening. The Zephyrian Fifth Armada dropped out of warp at the edge of Earth's solar system with the precision of a military force that had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. 500 warships arranged themselves in perfect battle formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of Sol, humanity's sun. Emperor Vaxis stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his 6 eyes studying the tactical displays with satisfaction. The human solar system appeared exactly as their scouts had reported. A few small colonies on nearby planets, some primitive space stations, and the blue-green world called Earth orbiting peacefully around its yellow star. "No response to our arrival, my lord," reported the communications officer. "No military formations, no weapons charging, no evacuation attempts. The system appears completely defenseless." General Krax moved to stand beside his emperor. "Perhaps they hope we will simply pass them by if they remain perfectly still, like prey animals hiding from predators." Vaxis nodded, though something nagged at the back of his mind. In 847 previous conquests, there had always been some response. Panic, desperate negotiations, futile military preparations, or immediate surrender. But never complete silence, never this absolute stillness. "Begin standard scanning procedures," Vaxis ordered. "I want to know the location of every ship, every weapon, every military installation in this system before we proceed." The massive sensor arrays of the Armada swept through space, mapping every object larger than a shuttle. The results appeared on the main display within minutes. "Scanning complete, my lord," announced the sensor operator. "We've detected 43 civilian vessels, mostly cargo ships and scientific research craft. No military vessels detected, no weapons platforms, no orbital defense stations. The humans appear to have no military presence in space at all." "Interesting," Vaxis mused. "What about ground-based defenses?" "Minimal, my lord. A few missile silos that appear to be decades old, some radar installations, nothing that could threaten our forces." General Krax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "My lord, I believe we may have just encountered the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They truly have no way to fight back." Vaxis should have felt satisfied, but instead, he felt uneasy. He had not become emperor by ignoring his instincts. "Maintain battle stations. Proceed to Earth, but keep our formations tight. Something about this feels wrong." Deep beneath Luna's surface, Admiral Chen watched the Zephyrian Fleets approached through sensors that the aliens couldn't detect. The command center hummed with quiet activity as dozens of officers monitored systems that had been waiting 50 years for this moment. Enemy formation analysis complete, reported Colonel Rodriguez. They're maintaining standard conquest deployment. Battleships in the center, support vessels in escort positions. They're not expecting resistance. Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Dr. Santos, status on our hidden assets? All Cerberus platforms are online and ready, Santos replied. The stealth field generators are functioning perfectly. They can't see us. Captain Webb, are you in position? The voice that answered came from the darkness of space, transmitted from a ship that appeared on no sensors. Phantom's Edge is ready. Admiral, we're holding position behind the enemy flagship, completely invisible to their sensors. Captain Marcus Webb commanded humanity's most advanced stealth ship. The Phantom's Edge was the culmination of 50 years of military research, equipped with technology that made it undetectable by any known sensor system. Webb himself was a veteran of humanity's space forces, chosen for this mission because of his ability to remain calm under impossible pressure. Excellent, Chen said. All stations prepare for Operation Cerberus. Remember, we get one chance at surprise. Make it count. The Zephyrian Armada continued its stately approach toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Emperor Vaxus had decided to make an example of this conquest, broadcasting the proceedings to the entire galaxy as a demonstration of Zephyrian power. Open a general transmission, Vaxus commanded. Let the humans hear their fate, and let every world in the galaxy witness what happens to those who ignore the Empire's generosity. The transmission reached Earth within seconds. Every human communication device, from the most advanced military systems to simple civilian radios, suddenly carried the Emperor's voice. Humans of Earth, Vaxus began, his words translated into dozens of human languages simultaneously. Your time of silence is over. You ignored our generous offer of peaceful integration into the Zephyrian Empire. Now you will face the consequences of your foolishness. Your world will be cleansed, your cities will burn, and your species will serve as an example to others who might consider defying us. On Earth, billions of humans heard the message. In cities across the world, people looked up at the sky where the Zephyrian fleet was now visible as tiny points of light. But instead of panic, there was a strange sense of anticipation. Humanity had been preparing for this day longer than most people knew. We are not monsters, Vaxus continued. We will give you one final opportunity to surrender. Transmit your capitulation within 1 hour, and we will kill only your military leaders. Remain silent, and we will assume you choose extinction. The transmission ended, and the Zephyrian fleet waited. 1 hour passed in complete silence. No. Response, my lord, the communications officer reported. The humans maintain their silence. Vaxus felt a mixture of disappointment and anticipation. Very well. General Krax, begin bombardment of their major population centers. Make it visible from space. Let the galaxy see what defiance costs. Yes, my lord. Charging main weapons. The, massive cannons of the Zephyrian battleships began to power up. Their energy signatures so powerful, they created visible distortions in space. In minutes, they would rain destruction on Earth cities, beginning with the largest population centers. But, as the weapons charged, something changed. My lord, the sensor operator called out, confusion evident in his voice. I'm detecting new energy signatures, multiple sources throughout the system. Explain, Vaxus demanded. Sir, objects that appeared to be asteroids are now showing massive power outputs. Space debris is moving into formation. And sir, I'm detecting what appears to be a ship directly behind us, but that's impossible. Our sensors would have detected any ship that size. Emperor Vaxus felt a chill run through his scaled body. Show me. The main display changed, revealing a sight that shook the confidence of every Zephyrian officer on the bridge. Throughout the solar system, what had appeared to be ordinary asteroids were transforming. Hidden panels slid away to reveal massive weapon arrays. Ancient-looking space stations suddenly blazed with energy as they came online. Derelict satellites repositioned themselves with the precision of military hardware. And behind the eternal Dominion, less than a kilometer away, a ship materialized out of nothing. It was sleek, black, and covered with angular surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. The Phantom's edge had dropped its stealth field. "Impossible," General Krax whispered. "Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy. Nothing can hide from us." Admiral Chen's voice suddenly filled the Zephyrian command ship, transmitted on a frequency that bypassed all their communication filters. "Emperor Vaxis of the Zephyrian Empire, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Your ultimatum has been received and rejected." Vaxis found his voice. "How are you doing this? Our sensors detected nothing." "You made a fundamental error in your assessment," Chen replied calmly. "You assumed that silence meant fear. You assumed that lack of visible weapons meant lack of capability. You assumed that a peaceful species was a helpless species." Around the Zephyrian fleet, more ships began to appear. Not hundreds, but dozens of vessels that seemed to phase into existence from nowhere. Each was smaller than the Zephyrian battleships, but their energy signatures suggested technology far more advanced than anything the Empire had encountered. "For 50 years, Chen continued, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We knew that eventually we would encounter a species like yours. A species that believes might makes right, that sees peace as weakness. We chose not to match your numbers or the size of your ships. Instead, we became very good at being invisible, and very good at precision." Captain Webb's voice joined the transmission from the Phantom's edge. "Emperor, your flagship is currently targeted by 17 different weapon systems. Each is capable of cutting your ship in half. I would suggest you listen carefully to what the Admiral has to say." Vaxis looked at his tactical display in shock. The situation had reversed completely. His overwhelming force was now surrounded by enemies they couldn't see until it was too late. But he was still an emperor who had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. "You may have surprised us," Vaxis growled, "but you are still outnumbered 50 to 1. Even with your stealth technology, you cannot match our firepower." "You're right," Chen agreed. "We can't match your firepower. That's why we're not going to try." At that moment, every Cerberus platform in the solar system fired simultaneously, but they didn't target the Zephyrian ships. Instead, precise energy beams struck specific points on each vessel with surgical accuracy. Within seconds, every ship in the Zephyrian fleet lost power to their weapon systems, their engines, and their communications. "What have you done?" Vaxis demanded. "We've disabled your fleet without killing a single one of your people," Chen replied. "Your ships are now powerless, but your life support systems are intact. You can still breathe, but you can't fight and you can't run." Dr. Santos's voice joined the transmission. "Emperor, humanity spent 50 years studying every piece of Zephyrian technology we could find. We know exactly how your ships work, right down to the molecular level. We know where every critical system is located, and we know how to shut them down without harming your crews." The Zephyrian bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Now," Admiral Chen continued, "let's discuss terms. You're going to order your empire to leave human space alone. You're going to mark our territory as off-limits to all Zephyrian forces, and you're going to send a message to every world in the galaxy explaining that the humans are under no one's rule but their own." "And if we refuse?" Vaxis asked, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Captain Webb answered from the Phantom's edge. "Then you'll spend the rest of your lives drifting in space, wondering when we might decide to visit your home world. Because, Emperor, you've just learned something important about humans. We're very patient, we're very creative, and we never, ever forget." Emperor Vaxis looked around his bridge at officers who had never known defeat. For the first time in his long life, he was facing a species that had outthought him completely. The humans hadn't matched Zephyrian strength. They had made it irrelevant. "Admiral Chen," he said finally, "you have made your point. The Zephyrian Empire recognizes human independence." "Excellent," Chen replied. "We'll be sending you a formal treaty within the hour. We'll also be providing you with working engines so you can return home. Consider it a gesture of goodwill from one civilized species to another." As the Zephyrian fleet prepared for their humbling return home, word of the encounter began to spread across the galaxy. The humans, the quiet species that explored for knowledge rather than conquest, had just demonstrated that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones you never saw coming. On Luna, Admiral Chen looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had passed its first test. They had proven that peace was not weakness, that silence was not surrender, and that sometimes the best way to win a war was to be so well prepared that you never had to fight it. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.